Hey, thanks for joining me. We're back in the shack looking at the NorCal 40A kit, which so far hasn't come to full life. We did receive some signals on it when I first brought it up, but it is pretty unexcited and isn't working very well. So I have an idea to get some help to figure out what the signal should be. So while they are not twins, they are brothers. This is a NorCal Sierra. This is a NorCal 40A board that I've been working on. So I'm going to use the NorCal Sierra as some ideas of some voltage reference points. So I'll give you a shot at looking at first the VFO for a Sierra. You can see this section just in shape and J309 with a pretty traditional looking VFO. And then here's the NorCal 40A. It looks pretty much the same. The tune circuit slightly different, and this one has a voltage variable cap for a diode here. This one has a physical cap, but otherwise mostly the same. A little bit different orientation for some of the parts, but I think you get the idea there. So we should be getting a similar voltage out the source here and the source here. They both feed a resistor and a 150 picofarad to ground off to the receive VFO. Here's the same signal that goes into the premixer, which is pretty similar. It's going into an NC40A, so at least the magnitudes ought to be similar. So we're going to try probing on the source of each, and I'll use R23 and R22, and I'm going to ignore the 0.01. I don't think it'll do much at 2 megahertz. So we'll measure each side of that resistor on both and see what kind of voltages we get. So there was a side note that I started to make this video, and my voltage readings were going from 1 volt to 100 millivolts. And many of you might notice that that's a flaky, there's a connector on a tech scope that hits this ring that tells it that you're running a time 10 probe. And that connection was not making good connection, so it was flicking between 2 volts and 200 millivolts, and that didn't make for a very believable story when I was trying to compare the voltages. So that's resolved, and we're going to try this. So this is here, pardon me, that's a NorCal 40A. It's here on the Sierra, so on the left side of R22, and we're on the 1 volt scale, so we can approximate it about 3 volts, I guess, something like that. And then we'll do the same thing on the NorCal 40. I'll try to hit that resistor. So that is R23. And you can see we're not at 3 volts. We're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe closer to 6 volts, but at least in the right magnitude. Then we're going to drop to the other side of this resistor on the Sierra. That's R22 again over there. There we go, under the hook. And we have to crank this down. So you can see that's about a 200 millivolt scale. That is about 200 millivolts. By the way, that flashing is flashing for you, but not flashing for me. So that's something to do with the camera. Then I'm going to use the delta tune just to make sure that, okay, that's about 2.93 megahertz for a Sierra. That's good. So we're looking at the right signal, and it's about 200 millivolts. Now we're going to look on the same signal over here, and it's on the back side of that resistor. And as you can see, same scale, flatline. So we'll put it in the middle and then we'll crank it up. And all you can see is maybe what might be some noise on the 20 millivolt scale. So we're officially getting nothing into the receive mixer. And I need to go figure out why that is. So it shouldn't be 0. It, like we just measured over here, it should be in the neighborhood of about 200 millivolts. So I'm going to go figure out what's wrong with the signal that's coming out of, out of here and going off to the receive VFO. And to tell you where that goes next, here's the receive mixer, and here's the receive VFO going right into the NC40A. So I don't need to go probe on pin 6 because there's nothing coming out of the VFO itself. So I don't know if that resistor is open or if we're somehow grounded at RF. So I'll go look at those two things and I'll come back and we'll see if we can give a resolution to the low output into the receive mixer. So thanks for watching. hopefully the odd camera angle, rain, and flickering scope won't bother you. So we'll see you on the next one. Hopefully we'll get this resolved and we'll get things flying a little higher on the NorCal 40A. Thanks. See ya.